Hi friends, welcome to ISN College Connect YouTube channel. In previous videos, we discussed about what is one-dimensional array and two-dimensional array. In these videos, we are going to discuss about jagged array. So what is jagged array is all about? So in jagged array, so we having different number of columns for each rows. So whereas in the two-dimensional array, so we having same number of columns for all the rows. So but in jagged array, so we having different number of columns for different rows. So for example, here you see this is our row one, right? Okay, so this is a row two and then three and four. So here you see this row will contains only two column, that is 0 and 1. But for this, it is going to be hold only one column. This rows is going to be hold how many columns? It is going to be hold only one columns. So the row 2, that is a row 2, that is index values I am telling. Okay, so it's holding how many columns? It is going to hold only two columns. Okay, so here we are going to have only three columns. Okay, so here you see the number of columns is differ from each row, one row to the other row. That is what is all about jagged array. Here, the syntax for creating an array. So hope you already, in case if you watch the two-dimensional array, in this I clearly explained it. But I once again I am going to explain the syntax for declaring an array. So first we need to mention the data type that should be followed by the array name, or else so we can put the square bracket first data type array name, then we can put the square bracket. Okay, so then data type, then square bracket, or else the array name. This is the way how we are going to create. But for defining an array, so we are going to mention the array name, new data type, but the size of the row is going to be mentioned it over here, but not the size of the column. Actually, I wrongly given this. Okay, so there is no need to mention the size of the column. In later sections, we are going to mention for each row how many columns you required in the later section. Okay, so we are going to discuss everything in the upcoming videos in the demo session. So then we are going to find the length of the row. The length of the row is going to be calculated by using the array name dot length, and then the length of the column is going to be calculated by using array name of index and then length. Okay, so it's going to return the length of the particular column in that particular row. It's going to return. Okay, so hope you understand what is a jagged array. Okay, so we are going to move to the implementation part. Okay, so kindly watch the two-dimensional array before you get into this jagged array. Okay, so moving to this demo part. So here, what I'm going to do in the demo part, I'm going to create one new packages. The package name which is jagged array, and then inside this, I'm just going to create a new class array pg. Okay, so here under this main method, I'm just going to create an one array in of marks equal to int. First, we need to mention the size of the row. Okay, so here I'm going to mention the size of the row, and then later I'm going to mention the column in the next line. Okay, so how I'm going to mention it means first I'm going to mention the marks. Okay, so as you know, so if you are going to give 3 as array size means it's going to start with 0, right? Okay, 0, 1, 2. Okay, so I'm just under this 0. So how many columns is required? For the 0th rows, how many columns is going to required? So I'm just going to be mentioning the size over here. For the 0th column, I required only 2 columns. So for first column, that is marks of 1, the index values is 1. For this, how many columns is required? Okay, so here I'm going to mention only 1. Okay, so then for the next one, marks of 2, how many columns is required? Okay, so here I'm going to mention int of, so I'm just going to be mention 3. Okay, so now how the array is going to be created means, so it's going to be in the 0th column, that is a first row, so it's going to be created like this. Okay, so how it is going to be created means it is going to be created like this. Okay, so we created like this, right? Array. So how the array is going to be get created means, okay, so here it's going to be have three rows. It's going to have how many rows means it is going to be have three rows. Okay, so one, two, three, zero, one, two. Okay, under the zeroth index, how many columns we mentioned? We have mentioned two columns, right? Okay, so one and then that should be followed by two. For the first in row, how many columns we mentioned? Only one, right? Okay, so that only one rows is going to be get created. For the second row, okay, so that is this one. How many columns we mentioned? Three, right? Okay, so one, and then that should be followed by 2, and then that should be followed by 3. Okay, so this is the way how the array structure is going to be created based upon this particular statement. So hope you understand this. Now we are moving to this next implementation part. As you already know this, so in case if you are going to use uh, two-dimensional array, you are going to use nested for loop. Okay, so for nested for loop, what I'm going to do, before I'm going to create the nested for loop, I need to get the input from the user, right? Okay, so that I'm just going to use a scanner classes. So new scanner. Okay, so here it is going to be which values. So scanner is going to be receive the input system dot in. Okay, so now the next one, I'm just going to pass a message to the user that the user need to print the information. So before that, I'm just going to be use a for loop. Okay, so nested for loop int I is equal to 0, I is less than that is array name. So to know the size of the row, okay, so we need to use the array name dot length. What is array name here we are having? That is a marks dot length. Okay, so then I plus plus. So then we are going to use then another for loop for retrieving the column. Okay, so or in case if you want to perform the value on the perform some operations or store some values on this particular array location, it means you need to use row as well as the column. And for accessing the column, we are going to use this particular next for loop. Okay, so that is int j is less than, then we need to know the length of the particular column and of the particular row. Okay, so you know that first we need to mention the array name. What is array name here we are having? That is marks, right? Okay, so marks of the index locations. In that, I'm just going to access the length. Okay, so then j plus plus, j plus plus. So now we are going to ask the user to enter the input for the particular locations. Okay, so here enter the value for the array location, that is uh, plus I plus j. Okay, so in this particular locations, what values you want to store, we are going to ask the user. Okay, so then what we are going to do, we are going to mention the array name. Okay, so then that should be followed by row and then j, that is a column, and equal to we are going to get the input from the user. So s dot next int. Okay, so when this particular statement is going to be get executed, when the user is going to give the values, that values is going to be stored it on this particular array locations. Likewise, we want to print the values, right? Okay, so for that also we need the another for loop. Okay, so but this for loop I'm just going to use for printing the information, the values which is present on this. Okay, so I'm just going to erase this, the value on the array location, this and this is, I'm just going to be mention the array name along with this index locations, index values. Okay, so then that's it. We done. Okay, so here we need to print some messages in between getting the information and printing it for your better understanding. Okay, so I'm just going to use system.out.println. In the star pattern, I'm just going to be mention printing printing data, star. Okay, done. Okay, so I'm just going to run this program, run as Java applications. Let's see the execution flow first. Okay, so it is asking the values which you want to store it on 00. I'm just going to mention 90. Here is he 91. Okay, so here is going to ask 92 and then 93. Okay, so then 94. Okay, so then I'm just going to use 100. Okay, so here we need to give some space. Yes, we given, but okay. Okay, done. Okay, so now you see the program is executing as per our expectations. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to uh, show the explanations of this particular program in the whiteboard. Okay, done. Okay, so here you see the execution is going to be start from the main method. Okay, so that what we are going to do, so we are going to create an array which is having three rows. Okay, so it's having three rows. Okay, so one, two, three. Okay, so for this zeroth locations, how many how much columns we required? We are required only two, right? Okay, so 0 and 1. Okay, 0 and 1. We in this particular row, we are having only two columns. For the first row, how many columns we required? We required only one. So we are going to create only one. So then I'm just going to remove this. Okay. So then for the second index, in the second index, how many columns we require? Three, right? Okay. So one, and then that should be followed by 2, and then that should be followed by 3. So as per this particular statement, the array is going to be created like this. So then here you see we are going to have the nested for loop. So for that, first the for loop is going to be initialized the I values is equal to 0. Then it is going to check the condition. Okay, so what the conditions which is written? I which is less than marks dot length. Marks dot length. Okay, so here marks dot length is going to be written the number of rows in the particular array. Okay, so number of rows, marks dot length. Okay, array name dot length is going to return number of rows 0, 1, 2, but the length is going to be count from 1, 2, 3. So it's going to return 3. Okay, so here the I values is what? 0, and then marks dot length values is what? 3. Is it true or false? It is true, right? Okay, so it is true. When it is true, it is going to be get inside. So inside this, what we return? We return the j values. That is for loop. So in this for loop, we are going to assign the j values is equal to initialize to 0. Then we are going to check the condition. That is the condition is j which is less than marks of I dot length. Marks of I dot length. Okay. So here, what's a marks dot I dot length is going to return? Marks of I dot length is going to be written the number of columns in the particular row. Okay. So number of columns on the particular row. Number of column in the particular row. In the particular row. So for this, j is going to be 0. Okay. So marks of I is going to be what? I values is what? 0. Okay. So dot length. Okay. So here marks of zeroth location. In this zeroth location, it's going to return number of size of the number of columns in that particular row. Okay, so number of columns is what? 2. Okay, so it is true or false? It's true, right? Okay, so that it get inside. It get inside. So it's going to be ask us to, it's just printing the statement, enter the values for the array locations. It's just printing the statement, enter the value for the array locations. This statement is going to be print on the user screen. Okay, so what's I values here we are having is 0, right? Okay, so j values is also 0. Okay, so here inside this we return the statement. What statement we return? Marks of I and then marks of j equal to s dot next int. Okay, so once the user is going to give that values is going to be captured by this statement. Okay, so what's I values here we are having? The I values here we are having is 0, and then j values here we are having is what? 0. Okay, in this 0th and 0th location, in case the user is going to give 90, is going to be store it on this particular location. After that, what it is going to be happen? It is going to be increment the j values by 1. Okay. So now it is going to be increment the j value by 1. Okay, so now previously I values is 0 and j values is what? 0. Okay, so now we are going to increment only the j value. So now the j values is what? 1. Okay, so now again it is going to check the condition. What's the condition? J which is less than marks of I dot length. Okay, so now the I value, what is the j values is 1. Okay, so 1 which is going to be less than marks of I. Okay, so marks of I is what? 0. So 0, marks of 0 dot length, it is going to be written number of columns in that particular row. Okay, so how many columns we are having? Only 2 columns, right? Is the statement is true or false? Yes, it is true. Okay, so if it is true, get inside, and then we are having the statement that is enter the value for the array location. Array location, I values is what? 0, j values is what? 1. Okay, so it asks us to enter the values for this particular locations. So here you see what's the next statement we are having? Marks of I and then j equal to s dot next int. S dot next int. Okay, so here what is I values? Here we are having marks of I values is what? 0, and then j values is what? 1. Okay, so suppose I'm just going to give 99 is going to be stored on the row 0 and then column is 1. Okay, so row is 0 and then column is 1. Under this particular locations is going to store 99. Okay, after that it's trying to increment the j value by 1. Okay, so now j values is going to be what? 2. Okay, so it's going to check the condition, that is j is greater than less than marks dot length. Okay, so here j values is what? 2. Okay, so 2. And then marks dot length is, that is marks of I dot length. Okay, so I is what? 0. In this 0th locations, how many columns we are having? Only 2. Right, it is telling that 2 which is less than 2. No, it is not, 2 is not less than 2, it is equal to 2, right? So this condition is false. Once the given condition is false, so what will be going to do? So it is going to be exit from the for loop and it will proceed to the statement which is next to the particular for loop. Here we don't have any for statement. So what it is going to do? So it is directly move to the upper for loop. That is this for loop. It's going to increment the I value by 1. Okay, so now the I values is 1. So again it is going to check the condition. If the condition is true, again this flow is going to be continue. So hope you understand what is a jagged array. Okay, so in case if you like this video, please share this video with your friends and please don't forget to click the subscribe and bell button. Thank you.